It just got a lot harder for the Cincinnati Bengals to trade for Justin Jefferson, but the silver lining is that we have an idea of Jamar Chase's market.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Lisco. He's your host, James Rapine. We're the Locked On Bengals podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day on YouTube, everywhere you get your podcasts. We appreciate all you out there who make us your first listen, who make us a part of your everyday routine, staying up to date on all things Bengals here on Locked On Bengals. Today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel, where you can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet at FanDuel.com/locked on. We'll discuss in detail Justin Jefferson's extension, the impact on Jamar Chase, and I made a joke. The Bengals won't be trading for Justin Jefferson, even more so after this deal is done. But it is a market-setting deal, to be sure, leaping A.J. Brown's $32 million annual per year number at $35 million per year for Justin Jefferson, a 4-year, $140 million deal with $110 million in guarantees. These will be benchmarks for any presumed Jamar Chase extension discussion, and is the second most total guarantees for any non-quarterback in NFL history, and the highest non-quarterback annual per year number in NFL history.
It's a deal that we expected to get done at some point this offseason, and trade for Justin Jefferson ... yet. That could still happen. His career is still young. Let's not go too crazy here and get cold take 3 years from now when Justin Jefferson joins to help the Bengals three-peat. But see what I did there, Jake? This Jamar Chase extension, when it happens, we will be pointing back to June 3rd, where this deal got done. And it might not happen this offseason. I think that's what's interesting, is that everyone's like, all right, well, the blueprint is here. Well, yeah. What happened with Justin Jefferson in the blueprint? He played out that 4th year of his rookie deal. He's going into his 5th year option year now, and he signed a 4-year extension. And I think that's what's interesting here, is there's precedent to go either way. Last week, it was Jalen Waddle, who's in Jamar Chase's draft class, had 3 years added onto his deal, so 5 total. And in Justin Jefferson's case, he had 1 year left, gets a 4-year extension, 5 total. And so there's precedent to wait, like the Vikings did last year, like Justin Jefferson did last year. And yet at the same time, you do have benchmarks of average annual value, guaranteed money, all of these things where I'm sure the Bengals are trying to go that 4-year route right now and keep Jamar under contract for the next 6. Would Jamar be willing to do that? Does he want to potentially wait out CeeDee Lamb? I think there are a lot of tentacles that we can discuss. But yeah, it's we knew it was coming. We knew Jamar Chase was going to make a heck of a lot of money with his next extension, whenever that does, or with his extension, whenever that does come down the pike. This was the first step towards that, is Justin Jefferson getting paid. Maybe Jamar's next. Maybe it's CeeDee Lamb and then Jamar. One thing is certain, though, at least for me, I don't know, maybe you feel otherwise, but I think the Bengals are going to have to pony up, and they know that, and it's just a matter of when, not if, much like Joe Burrow a year ago.
Yeah, I think that they will at least have to match, most likely exceed Justin Jefferson's numbers, most likely get close to or exceed the guarantees. And that's what will probably be the most interesting thing about the negotiations between Jamar Chase and the Cincinnati Bengals, is figuring out the contract structure, where those guarantees fall. According to Adam Schefter's report, $88.743 million due to Justin Jefferson at the time that deal is signed. We'll find out if that's in the form of a signing bonus or what that is, but it could be that the Vikings decided to front load that signing bonus and really put that money in to a big prorated bucket right away, instead of guaranteeing a ton in terms of future salary. Now, $110 million in total guarantees suggests that there are certainly guaranteed salary years in the Justin Jefferson deal, but I did find it interesting that it's $88.743 million at the time of signing, according to Schefter. So that structure piece is something that will be very interesting for the Bengals, who, for non-quarterbacks, the biggest guarantee they've done was Orlando Brown Jr. just last year in the huge signing bonus that they gave Orlando Brown Jr., $31.1 million. That's a little bit off from $110 million that Justin Jefferson just perhaps set the floor for a future potential Jamar Chase extension with the Bengals. There's a little bit of a gap there that the Bengals will have to cover.
Just a little bit. That gap is bigger than Orlando Brown Jr. When you talk about gaps, that thing is bigger than him, Trent Brown, and Amarius Mims combined into one. It is a huge gap. And yeah, I think the Bengals knew this and have known this and known it was coming. And as far as the guaranteed goes, because they don't guarantee year 2 money. No one not named Joe Burrow is getting guaranteed money in year 2. Well, I went back and it was Ben Baby asked Jamar Chase last season what was most important to him. Upfront money. So that 89 at signing, he's probably going to want at least a milli more than that. And I think that's what the Bengals, they know it, but you have to break your normal line of business here when it comes to Jamar Chase, much like Joe Burrow. And that's why I hesitate to jump, Jake, at the deal's going to get done tomorrow or next week or next month. I don't know, man. I mean, Jamar Chase is awesome. He's not Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow took the start of the regular season. It happened like an hour before the 2023 season started on that Thursday night. And, he's doing a press conference after signing on that Saturday before leaving for Cleveland week 1. I mean, it was right up against the wire. And so this could do that too. It would not shock me at all if it goes into camp or beyond camp. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I just think that there's just so much that's taken into account. And that 3-year versus 4-year, I think that's a very real thing, where if the Bengals want to get Jamar signed this offseason, it might only be 3 years. He might not want to go 4 years, given the fact that it would keep him under contract for the next 6. Maybe he's willing to. At the same time, maybe he's not.
I do think that the timing aspect will be interesting, and that will have an impact on the duration of the deal. I also think that one thing that we should do is do the head-to-head comparison, the Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson head-to-head comparison, the stat comparison between those two guys through their first 3 years, because that's all we have for Jamar Chase. Obviously, Justin Jefferson continued with a great 4th year that Jamar Chase will be looking to follow in the same vein, but Jefferson actually outproducing Jamar Chase in most categories through 3 years of their deal. And will that have an impact on negotiations? Probably not. There's another aspect there we can talk about, which is getting these deals done early is better than waiting. Now, do the Bengals have a choice with Jamar Chase? I don't think so. I think Jamar has been very clear with his desire to wait to see Justin Jefferson's deal. He's been very clear with the things that matter for him. You can put together a super cut of at least 3, if not more, Jamar Chase quotes where he's talked about, and I've seen all of these today or heard you mention. You just mentioned the Ben Baby question and discussion with Jamar Chase about what matters most to him in a contract. You've seen your question to Jamar that you posted on Twitter, who are the best wide receivers in the NFL, and he thinks he's better than Justin Jefferson, of course. And you go back to Kelsey Conway's question to Jamar Chase in the locker room: does he want to see Justin Jefferson's deal? And he did. And so we have this very clear idea of what Jamar has said about what he wants in his next contract. So we know all of that, but I do think it's interesting to do the head-to-head comparison as well. And then we can talk a little bit about some of these obstacles and guarantees and the CeeDee Lamb comparison as well, because CeeDee Lamb might be the next chip to fall as we continue to discuss the way the Bengals will build this roster and get Jamar Chase to be part of that future coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the app you need to download right now. Whether you're looking for tickets to Great American Ballpark to see the Cincinnati Reds, maybe you're headed to Dallas to check out the NBA Finals, or you're going to go to Boston to check out the NBA Finals, or there's that concert that you had your eye on that you're trying to get tickets for, and you've been going back and forth. Check out Game Time. They have killer last minute deals. They have all-in prices. They have views from your seat, and they have a lowest price guarantee. They take the guesswork out of buying tickets, whether it's NBA, concerts, any live event, Major League Baseball, or you want to get ahead of things with your Bengals tickets for 2024, you got to get Game Time. And Game Time's lowest price guarantee is simple. They will credit you 110% of the difference with their lowest price guarantee. They have all-in pricing, so you see exactly what the price is going to be, no hidden fees, and it's a feature that you can toggle right there in the app. So get the app today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first order. Again, that's Locked On NFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, Locked On NFL with the download or with the Game Time app. Download it today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
One thing I find fascinating about some developments in the quarterback market and the wide receiver market, James, is the way that precedent matters so much. And Ari Merov had some reporting around the Justin Jefferson deal. Why it didn't get done last year is because Jefferson at the time wanted to top Tyreek Hill's $30 million per year number. But anybody that really knows contracts knows that Tyreek Hill wasn't really making $30 million a year. He was making great money, but he's not going to see the last year of that deal. And we don't have full details yet on the Justin Jefferson deal, but suffice it to say that with Amon-Ra St. Brown going over $30 million per year and A.J. Brown's extension putting him at $32 million per year, according to over-the-cap accounting, those numbers mattered and those precedents matter. And the same thing happened with Patrick Mahomes in a deal that should not have set the quarterback market going forward, but did. And the Tyreek Hill deal, which should not really have set the wide receiver market going forward, but now with some of these bigger brand, more productive, top tier wide receivers getting paid, it clearly did have an impact. And that also happened here with Justin Jefferson, who had a goal, according to Merov's reporting, to be the top paid non-quarterback in the NFL. And that will have an impact on Jamar Chase, even when we get to these head-to-head stat comparisons, and you see that Jefferson is ahead in a lot of categories.
Yeah, and that's what's amazing, one, about what Jefferson has done, and amazing about both of these guys and the competition between them. And look, Jamar got off to the better start, which is hard to do that rookie year. But then Jefferson, he avoided that injury, the hip injury that kept Jamar out. And that's really the difference here. Now, Jamar's had more postseason success, but you look at these two guys, they've both been ultra productive. And Justin, up until last year, just stayed a little healthier. That's all. And his numbers, though, in those first 3 years are insane. And I think what's tough about the numbers is you mentioned some of those guys, the A.J. Brown, the Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's not like those guys have necessarily produced like Tyreek for as long as Tyreek or match first. It doesn't matter. Once that precedent's there, that precedent's there. So I think that when you look at the numbers, Jefferson's been more productive overall. But if you're Jamar Chase, you say, well, I'm just as valuable. There are reasons for this, and you just push for it. I think CeeDee Lamb will do the same in Dallas, by the way. It's not just Jamar. And I don't know that there's a team, including the Cowboys, that would take CeeDee Lamb over Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson's the better player. Sometimes it doesn't matter. Like Trevor Lawrence is probably going to get paid more than Joe Burrow. Sometimes it just doesn't matter. He's not better than Burrow, but he's just next up. And Jared Goff, is he $2 million worse than Burrow? Well, that's the average annual value. It's just what happens when it comes to these contracts and the precedent. So would not shock me at all. Even though he's a little less productive through 3 years, if Jamar Chase is productive moving forward, he could be more productive than Justin. But if he gets paid more, would not shock me one bit.
Yeah, so just to do the head-to-head stat comparison here, which obviously it's never apples to apples in the NFL. Jefferson's team situation much different from Jamar Chase's team situation. The health difference between the two players. Jefferson has played in 5 more games. He's appeared in 5 more games total. But to your point, James, to start their careers, Jamar Chase beat out Justin Jefferson. He did have one more game to do it, but 1,455 receiving yards to 1,400 receiving yards. Jefferson did have 7 more catches, but Jamar Chase, his rookie year, was a downfield demon, 18 yards per catch to Jefferson's 15.9. He had 6 more touchdown catches, and well, both of them were all pros. And Jamar Chase, obviously a rookie of the year recipient, in addition to and actually outgunning Jefferson in that category. Jefferson not a rookie of the year, but Jefferson does have an offensive player of the year to his credit in 2022. And that is an award that Jamar Chase has not yet received. Both of them 3-time Pro Bowlers. Justin Jefferson has 2 more All-Pro nods. He's a 3-time All-Pro. Jamar is just a 1-time All-Pro, according to the Pro Football Reference head-to-head comparison I'm looking at here. Jefferson, through 3 years, though, was more than 1,000 yards better than Jamar Chase, ended up a full yard better in yards per catch, was nearly 60 clear of Jamar Chase in receptions. The only categories that Jamar Chase, the only category, I should say, that is a significant head-to-head win for Jamar Chase is receiving touchdowns. Yeah, James, 29-25 for Jamar Chase between those two guys through 3 years.
And look, part of that is offenses, all those situations, but part of it is the health. And was it only a 5-game difference through 3 years, or a 5-game difference now?
Only a 5-game difference through 3 years. Justin Jefferson at 50, okay, Jamar Chase at 35 through 3 years. And Jefferson only missed, well, he didn't miss any full games until 2023. In 2023, he did miss 7 games.
Gotcha. Yeah. In last year, he missed it. So the hip is the difference, right? Is the big difference there. And who knows what happens? Because for Jamar Chase, that could be 750 yards really quickly, depending on the weeks and if he has a couple of big games. But the production is the production. And despite that, I still think that Jamar is going to be right there, because I think we know, like, that 1,455 yard season. By the way, that last game of his rookie year, he was in for like 2 series, I think, and then they pulled him. But that's the Jamar that, and we talked about this on yesterday's show, the explosiveness and all of those things. He's capable of going for 1,800 this year and having that offensive player of the year type of season. And so when you have someone like that, do you worry that they're a little less productive than Justin when he might be better moving forward? I think that's where it gets tough. Is it's not like it's unrealistic to think that Jamar Chase, even though he hasn't been as productive through his first 3 years, years 4 through 6, 4 through 7 could certainly be more productive than Justin Jefferson's. And when you get that type of player, you pay him. And that's why I think if you're Rocky Arsenault, the agent for Jamar Chase, you're making it work, and you're making the Bengals work by finding ways to exceed this deal.
Yeah, the big difference in their first 3 years is obviously Jefferson's 2022. When you go for 1,809 yards in a season, and Jamar Chase, well, he went for 1,216 in year 3. That's a pretty big difference. But like we said, there's some pretty big differences between these offenses, between the way these players are used, and hopefully the changes that the Bengals have made allow the Bengals to use Jamar Chase a little bit more like Justin Jefferson. We're going to talk about Justin Riscotti again. Well, at least I am going to bring up Riscotti again for what, the 3rd straight episode, maybe it's just 2nd straight episode, and being a part of that Justin Jefferson. Well, it's just we're talking about Jefferson and Chase again, right? And so you talk about the guy that came from Minnesota and understands how they got that production out of Justin Jefferson and applying it to getting Jamar Chase into the slot a little bit more, having him run a little bit of a different route tree, perhaps, and using that to get more production out of your star player, especially with the departure of Tyler Boyd and what we just talked about with the changes coming for the Bengals as slot receiver and that 3rd receiving weapon or 4th receiving weapon on the field for Joe Burrow at a given time. There's also the CeeDee Lamb factor here in terms of just the contract for Jamar Chase and the timing there. And we can discuss that as well as we finish up with our thoughts on the impact on Jamar Chase's extension from this Justin Jefferson deal to finish up the show coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. There aren't many NBA finals with a team as favored as the Boston Celtics. Right now, the Dallas Mavericks plus 188. There aren't many teams. You go back to Detroit and the Pistons in 2004. They were heavy underdogs, but there haven't been many teams that have been this favored. And so, do you believe in the Boston Celtics? Do you think that they're going to handle business? Well, get to FanDuel today, where new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. So sign up at FanDuel.com/locked-on. Throw $5 on any matchup. Maybe you want to throw it on the Reds. Maybe you want to throw it on a game that you're feeling confident in. And then you can wager on the NBA Finals with $150 in bonus bets to use on spreads, money lines, player props, and so much more. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make every playoff shot count. That means you can wager on over-unders. You can decide whether or not Jason Tatum is going to hit his over on points. Maybe Luka Doncic is going to have a triple-double on his route to NBA Finals MVP, ... Whatever the wager, whatever the prop bet, whatever the parlay, FanDuel is going to have it. So check them out right now at FanDuel.com/locked-on and get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Now, do you think CeeDee Lamb's deal gets done before Jamar Chase's deal gets done? Let's start there.
Yes, I do.
Do you think that CeeDee Lamb eclipses or touches the Justin Jefferson numbers?
I think it'll be really close. I do. And he might get $111 million guaranteed and $140.7 million over the next 4, something like that. I think what's interesting, and I've hinted at it a couple of times, but is Jamar even listening to a 4-year contract? Mm-hmm. Is that even in his, because if you're CD, you're definitely getting your 4. I don't think you even want 3. You want to get your 4 now because you're in that same draft class as Justin Jefferson. But Jamar and Justin are in different classes, 2020 versus 2021. And so do you want to be under contract until you're 30 if you're Jamar? With the way contracts are rising, you probably don't. You want the next 5. And so, and maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think a 3-year might be able to get it done if you're Jamar's camp. Meanwhile, if you're the Bengals, of course, you want to lock them up for as long as you can with the way these wide receiver numbers are being thrown out.
You probably want to get it pretty well aligned with Joe Burrow too, right? And Joe Burrow is under contract until 2029. Jamar Chase's deal currently goes until 25 with the 5th-year option. So you'd want to do 4 years to get that in line with Joe Burrow's deal. Maybe it's that simple. Maybe they incentivize Jamar Chase to agree to sign up for contracts through his age 29 season by saying, you know what, we'll give you more upfront money for that 4th year. And Jamar Chase has said that that's the most important thing to Jamar, to him in these negotiations.
That's the argument. If you want to get him to do that, maybe you go 4 or 150 and 117 guaranteed or something like that, where it's clearly a notch above Justin. So you get that 6th year. It's worth it, by the way. That 10 million is well worth doing that because you can just spread it out much farther and it's much easier to work with.
Well, the other thing there would be, do they kind of think about the same structures and ideas that they use with the Joe Burrow deal, where they are prorating some option years for Joe Burrow over void years at the end of that deal? It's not a lot, but it's the same idea of maximizing your proration. Now, if the Bengals do a 4-year deal right now, they still get a 5-year proration on that money because they get to use the 5th-year option. They get to use the last year of his rookie contract. In fact, his 2024 contract to spread out some of that money. So there is reason to perhaps get it done sooner than later to defray and spread out that cap hit, bring some of it into this year, especially if they do a big signing bonus. They could do an option bonus down the road to prorate more money into the future, the way they did with Joe Burrow's deal, the way that I assume the Vikings are going to have some sort of mechanism like that for Justin Jefferson, or some sort of delayed guarantee or something like that, like we saw with some of these other wide receiver contracts. But they do have those options available to them. And these are reasons that the Bengals are incentivized to get the deal done as soon as possible. So if negotiations haven't started, as it has been reported that, at least at the time Kelsey Conway did report it, that negotiations hadn't begun between the Bengals and Jamar Chase. And apologies, James, if you've reported on this as well. But this is the time to get that going. We've already seen reporting immediately in the aftermath of the Justin Jefferson deal. We saw reporting that expect this to speed up things between Dallas and CeeDee Lamb immediately. There were multiple reports that said that. We haven't seen those reports about the Bengals and Jamar Chase yet. And obviously there's a difference in the draft here. There's more team control for Jamar Chase versus CeeDee Lamb. And maybe it doesn't happen this year. Maybe it does go like Justin Jefferson into next year. And next year, Bengals fans are annoyed because somebody's talking about trading for Jamar Chase the way that Bengals fans have been talking about trading for Justin Jefferson. Who knows the way that goes. But through 3 years, Jamar Chase certainly head-to-head has a huge advantage over CeeDee Lamb, who had the big breakout in year 4. I mean, every receiving category, Jamar Chase through 3 years was ahead of CeeDee Lamb despite playing in 4 less games. So that is interesting. CeeDee Lamb has the benefit of the 4th year really boosting his value. Maybe Jamar Chase wants to wait for that. Maybe the Bengals want to wait for that. We've seen the Bengals be stubborn in the past with player valuations, and maybe they look at these numbers comparing Jefferson to Chase and they say, you know what, you've only been a 3-time Pro Bowl. You haven't been a 3-time All-Pro. You didn't win an Offensive Player of the Year. Jefferson's outproduced you in all but your rookie year. This obviously shouldn't happen, and I don't think it will happen, but it's worth mentioning at least as something that we hope doesn't happen, and that the Bengals should not do when negotiating with Jamar Chase.
4 years, $150 million, $117 guaranteed. Done. On to the next. There we go. Oh, Jamar, you don't want to do 4? You're just not willing to do 4? Fine. 3, $110, $95 million guaranteed. I'd start with the 4 year. The 4 year is way better because, again, you have the extra year. But that's where we go. And then, boom, James and Jake can do their instant reaction to Jamar Chase being locked up for the next 6 seasons. Jamar can be really, really rich, train in Miami, Dallas, or wherever the hell he wants to every offseason. And we see a lot of 9-1 memes and touchdowns at Paycor Stadium for the next half decade plus.
The Bengals would be served getting it done sooner than later and not waiting. I don't think there's another wide receiver domino to fall that's necessarily going to pump Jamar Chase's value up too much, because Justin Jefferson is the number to beat. And if CeeDee Lamb does beat it, like you said, I think it'll be very close. I'm not convinced that CeeDee Lamb will quite beat the Justin Jefferson numbers, even though he is coming next. But the other wide receivers that are due to get deals, I don't think they're necessarily touching these numbers, like the T. Higginses of the world, the Amari Coopers of the world, the Brandon Ayuk's, Stephon Diggs, the guys that are going to be free agents next year. I don't think this deal necessarily moves them too much. It might pull them up a little bit, but there are plenty of other deals, Michael Pittman type deals, that exist as comparisons for that tier of wide receiver. So on the one hand, perhaps waiting doesn't hurt the Bengals too much. But on the other hand, it only takes one team and it only takes one weird structure to throw the whole market out of whack, as we saw with Patrick Mahomes' deal and the impact on the quarterback market and Tyreek Hill's impact on these last couple wide receiver deals.
And Tyreek Hill wants a new deal. So that lingers again. And without looking, I'm not sure anyone over the past 2 seasons has been more productive than him. So that part makes it really, really interesting. Obviously, age is a factor, size. He feels like he's limping off the field every other play, and then he comes back. You have him in fantasy football, and it makes you cringe, even though he balls out every week, it seems like. Anyways, yeah, there's always another domino, right? And I think that Tyreek Hill one is kind of lingering. So 4 years, would be nice. Lock him up for 6. That's the ideal Bengals scenario. I wonder if Jamar's party inside of things, if they want to do that, or if they go 3, which would line him up, by the way, with Justin Jefferson again for another contract down the line.
Yeah, that would be another fun thing for us to discuss in six years, whenever that would be. Right?
5 years.
I don't know. Math is hard at the end of the show, James. That's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. We've got a Bengals open OTA practice for you coming up on our next show, and we'll get back to some of those biggest questions, assuming there's no more breaking news this week that we have to get on in an expedient fashion. Last note, there will most likely not be a Thursday show. A Thursday night show, a Friday show. We're probably only going to have 4 shows for you this week as we get into off-season mode here in June. Keep your eyes out on social media, and we'll continue to keep you updated throughout this week if those plans change. But expect for now an OTA show coming on our next program, and then one more show for the rest of this week on Locked On Bengals. Until then, thanks for listening to this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Hoo day, and have a good one.